flag. That's a flag. Awesome drive, man. Awesome drive.
It's nice to close out a race like that. That was awesome.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to 2023 season episode 27 of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. As always, this podcast is brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the drivers of the Blaney racing family for 2 decades, and Team Blaney itself launched on social media in 2014. Now, each weekly episode of the podcast offers an in-depth analysis of Ryan Blaney's latest NASCAR Cup Series race, plus news, notes, and a lineup of special guests all throughout the year. This week, we break down the number 12 team's run in the Cookout 400 this past weekend at Richmond Raceway. Steve, welcome back for episode 27. As I just said, fresh off this Cup Series race at Richmond, the second visit to Richmond this year. And there was a race. I don't know. We chatted about it last time because I think, the Jeff Gluck, was it a good race poll for the spring race? I think was in the 80% area. I remembered it being a good race. I remember saying, I think this Richmond's back on my list for tracks I want to go to, and I'm not saying I'm going to take it off, but it was just one of those races where there really weren't any cautions. It ran really long. If you're a fan of strategy races, and not even fuel mileage strategy, this is all tire strategy. Maybe you love that, and I love races like that. I don't know about you, but do you want that on a short track?
Well, if it's the only way they're going to be able to race, have some sort of competition, I guess it's going to have to work. I mean, because we went to Richmond a couple of years ago, and it was a single file train that you couldn't get around anybody. Yeah, you might be faster by 2-3 tenths and couldn't get around anybody. At least with the tire wear situation, 2-3 tenths. Guys were getting, I had just 10 lap fresher tires. Guys were going around on the outside. Right. I made note a couple times. Ryan went around the outside of somebody, and just because he had the fresher tires. So that's what made it interesting. That's for sure. And there were a couple cars that got themselves dialed in really good and, and became dominant. And with only one natural caution, we got to see, I think, the best car win, which ultimately, when you're watching a race, that's what you want to see. You don't want to see too many fluky things happen. You want to see somebody in the top couple cars, who have been a good car all day win the race. So, yeah,
and I would say absolutely strategy. Strategy definitely saved the race. And I mean, I was into it the whole time thinking about, this is good, this is cool. And then at some point along the way, and I'm like, oh, man, this really it's a short track. You expect a little bit more contact and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, we haven't seen that at Richmond in years. We did see multiple grooves. There was a point, I think, at the first stage where I think Kyle Larson was trying to not get lapped. For one, Hendrick was off as well. I know we're going to talk about the Penske cars being a little bit off to start this race, but Team Hendrick was kind of outside of the 9 car, was struggling as well. And the 5 was getting lapped in that first stage, and he started running the wall and seemed to be making some time up there. But it was interesting to see, there were guys running kind of all over the track. A lot of that had to do with tire fall off and moving around a little bit, or even just not being able to, corner as well as they would on fresh rubber. So for however many weeks in a row, if you were at the track, it was probably a lot more interesting than it was watching it on TV, just because you can see the whole field kind of searching around for grip and guys blowing past other guys because of the tire strategies and things like that. So I won't say it was a bad race by any means. It wasn't a super exciting race. And even for us, it was kind of just slow to start, and then momentum just kind of build a little bit. And then you kind of start to see a light at the end of the tunnel, and things turned out relatively okay. It wasn't the best. It wasn't the worst. Definitely, there's points of this race where it seemed like it could be a really bad finish for this 12 team, but things worked out okay. And but it was a little. And you could talk about how this worked, but I know a lot of the folks that were paying attention to practice and qualifying on Saturday were definitely a little concerned out of the gate. But it's also just kind of the way they approached practice too, I think.
Yeah. They didn't go out right away on Saturday, and that's part of it. Like a lot of the cars who set their fast time, they go out right away. They hit the track. They get the best grip before any tire rubbers lay down. And Ryan did not do that. They waited about 5 minutes in, And it might have been on purpose. They might have wanted to see what happens when the track rubbers up, because that's the conditions you're going to run the race at. So worried more about balance than anything else, you know. So I think about 5 laps in, he was about 1 second off the 24 car, but he was really loose on entries. What he's talking about. Jonathan's talking about using the brakes if he can a little bit to help, changing the brake bias. They ran 33 laps. They did a hot entry at the end. The single lap was 15th fastest in that group. So yeah, it looked a little concerning, but then like if you looked at lap averages, you know, they were, I want to say it was 5th in like the 25 lap average. So once again, there's some sort of speed there. And the 24, the 9, the 17, 43, the 10 are top fast 5 there. Group B's fast 5 were the 45, the 4, the 5, the 34, the 22. Like I said, once again, though, very deceiving because it's, you know, getting out on the track, running that lap on the in the groove right away before it gets any kind of rubber laid on it, you know. And you combine the two, the Group A and Group B, it was P31 overall. Every time that Group B went on the track, they did way better than Group A. So, and we're going to find that out in qualifying here too. Ryan went out, what was it, like 17th, I think? Yeah. And the first lap, he bobbled the lap. He just did. In 1 and 2, bobbled it. He said so on the radio. He got on TV and said something on TV. Now, TV commentators tell you they were getting 2 laps in. They were allowed to do 2 laps. And they all said the first lap was always going to be faster than the second lap. You almost never saw a guy improve on the second lap. So Ryan did improve on the second lap, and he improved because the first lap was so bad. The thing is that second lap put him all the way to P1. He was fastest at that point. But like I said, once again, there was like 10 more guys to go. And yeah, 10 more cars to follow. He got bumped out of the top 5 with 4 to go. Ends up 8th in the session, and he was only about a 10th off. So could you imagine if he'd hit the first lap, which would have been faster than the second lap? If he gets within that 10th and he's inside the top 5, you know, it was the 11, the 24, the 47, the 23, and the 9. So imagine he bumps the 9 out of there. Now the 9 all of a sudden will be, you know, starting way back, and Ryan would have been in the top 10. So, I mean, it was just that close. And what's really funky is what happens in Group B's qualifying. That they were way faster, and the top 5 there were the 4, the 19, 54, 45, and the 8. But 17 of the 18 cars in Group B were faster than Ryan, who was 8th in Group A. So he starts 25th on Sunday.
Yeah, because they combine the times. If people don't just start them straight up based on where you are. It's based on your time after it goes after 10th. So that's why sometimes Ryan's, you know, qualified 6th or 7th in his group and then started 14th or something like that. But that doesn't happen all the time.
It doesn't always happen like that. So the second group, like I said, 17 of the 18 cars in Group B were faster than Ryan's time. So that put him all the way back. And it's just amazing. The 45 gets the pole. There was only one Ford in the top 10, and that was the 4 car, who will be starting 8th. Then we got let's see. Well, originally before everything started, the 9, the 1, and 31 failed the inspection twice, so they lose their pit selection. And we get to Sunday. Stages of 70, and then at 230, and then 400. Pit stall 18, which was behind the 77 and in front of the 3 car. We got a Dylan Boy sandwich. Once we get in the car here, Ryan and Josh talking about they get the pit road speed thing down, and you know, Jonathan tells Ryan to deal with your entry as best you can. So something they already knew about the way car was set up for the start, you know, and how they were going to be able to adjust from it. First bunch of laps of the race, bottom of three. And he does pass this, like the 78 to 31, and he's in 25th at this point. Lap 9, he passes 21 on the outside, gets the 24th. He says he's tight through the middle here. At lap 12, passes the 19, gets the 23rd, but then the 19 passes him back a lap later. And then another lap after that, Ryan gets him back. So there was a little bit of back and forth there, at least on the restarts. Unfortunately, there were only, a couple of restarts too. By lap 30, the 3-car watched him. He was falling through the field back toward Ryan. So guys who started up in the top 10 or up near the front, if they didn't have the setup right, they were coming back to you. As Ryan tried running a little higher in the corner here. Of course, he's telling Jonathan that they're running badly in traffic, but what are you going to do? You are in traffic. Lap 33 passes the 20 car. He's in 24th at that point. And lap 50, Ryan and Josh talk about running a higher lane. So they're talking about trying to do a little bit different in the corner here. Josh tells him only the 20 cars done it so far and made it work. Everyone else goes backward when they try it. Lap 65, he passes the 42, gets the 23rd. And Ryan and Jonathan are talking about adjustments here, and Jonathan says he's watching, he's watching what the 20 is doing because he's trying to figure out if he can, maybe adjust to help him run that kind of line. And he tells him the 20 is tighter, so they might have to tighten up the car to do that. Now we get to is this the stage break? Yeah, we get to the stage break here. The 45 wins the stage. And Jonathan gets on the horn and tells Josh to see if he can find the spot of the 3-car. See if they can swap spots coming before they come in, because the 3-car is in front of Ryan. Now, if they were directly in front of Ryan. So if they were to swap spots, Ryan would be able to pit right in front of him and so on and so forth. They could both line up their pit stop. And
that's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
And honestly, when they, it's difficult. This is part of the problem of not qualifying well, is your pit selection is kind of hindered. So, we're used to Jonathan being able to pick a pit stall that either is clear in or clear out, or the first stall, or when you get the pole, at least the last stall on pit road. But they didn't have that luxury this time. So as you said, they're in a Dillon sandwich, and I first see the lineup and I'm like, that's not going to be too bad. He's going to be running in front of the 3 eventually in this race, and the 77 is going to be, multiple laps down at some point. So I wasn't too worried about it. And unfortunately, as this race goes on, even after kind of doubting what was happening early in the race, the 3-car had a pretty strong car all day long. So this is something they have to deal with throughout the entire race. Yeah, and this first pit stop, they do have to go around the 3. Let me go back and find the pit times here, because actually, there we go. Okay, so they do have to go around the 3 here, and because Jonathan asks Josh what happened when he asked him, and he says, "Yeah, he laughed at me, laughed in his face, basically." Actually, the 77 was already a lap down, so he was out of the way. But you kind of have to, change your entry into the pit box, but going around the guy, and you can't really pinch him. You can't really pinch him in, because what if happens? You pinch him in, he decides to hit you. You want to play nice. So they go in 23rd and come out 25th, and the pit stop is just over 11 seconds. So it's not real bad, considering what they had to deal with there. And they only lost a spot or two having to deal with the 3-car. So at the choose cone here, the 45 chooses the bottom, and Ryan takes the top here, and they restart lap 78. 23 actually ends up taking the lead here. And at lap 82, Ryan's up to 23rd. Then the 16 and the 43 somehow gang up on Ryan and come past him. And at lap 87, he does pass the 16, get back to 24th. And he's trying hard to pass on the outside here, actually. So he is trying to make some different moves here. Lap 92 passes the 38 up to 23rd. And Jonathan says something about using the gears as a balance tool as the run goes on. So I don't know if he's talking about trying to shift a little bit more, or lap 98, 38 comes back around the outside here. But at lap 106, he passes the 43. At lap 115, he passes the 38 again, so he's up to 22nd here. At lap 116, passes the 5-car up to 21st. Jonathan gets on there and tells him they're about 10 to 15 laps away.
And Ryan says we are a little bit better here. So, he's passed a couple cars and he notices the difference here. Lap 121, the green flag pit start. And at lap 125, he passes the 14 cars. And like I said, as they're pitting here, he gets to 17th. By lap 124, he's up to 13th. And at lap 130, they decide to come in and pit. I think they'd gotten to the top 5 by that point, actually, but it's.
And the strategy here is they're running long. There's a couple of different things that could happen. They could run long, catch a caution, and then everybody might want to come back in and get tires. But from what I understand, the sets of tires in this race were very, very limited, and the tire fall off was a lot. So I don't even know if that could have happened. But what this does do with this strategy is it puts Ryan behind in track position initially when he comes back out during this green flag cycle. But on the back end of the run, he's much more able to pick off cars that pitted much earlier than him. So that's kind of the strategy. You hoped you're not going to make up all these extra spots. You're hoping to gain, 2 or 3 spots every time you do this. And it was kind of successful at different points throughout the day.
Yeah, definitely. And when he comes back on the track, he actually clears the 23 car, who was the leader. Now this pit stop was just over 9 seconds. It was I think it was the pit stop of the week there on the,
Yeah, really solid stop.
Really, really good stop for green flag pit stops. Usually the green flag stops are a little slower because they want to make sure they don't get a penalty of some sort, but this one was on the money. So by lap 135, he's 26th, but he also gets his lap back, passing the 34 car who stayed out way long. Lap 137 passes the 1. He's up to 25th here. But at lap 145, he's saying he can't pass anybody, but he's running the same lap times as the leader, the 23. So, not being able to pass somebody, but yet running lap times that are same as the lead car is pretty interesting. Lap 146 passes 16 to 23rd. The 19 car who ran long pits, so he's up 22nd. At lap 147, passes the 99 up 21st. At lap 155, he says he's free on entry here. And a couple laps later, he tries the high lane in 3 and 4. Lap 170, the 38 pits, so he's up 20th. And, did I miss something there? We got more green flag pit stops. We have 2 sets of pit stops in both stages, correct? Yeah. Stage 2 and stage 3. So, yeah, they got green flag pit stops beginning here. Jonathan says we're going to try to tighten you up for this cycle. Brian says something about the brakes are getting a little bit soft, too, which is a little scary thing to hear because they do use them a lot there. Lap 179 is up to 4th there, and they're pitting. They come in and comes out in front of the 45 who was leading. So that's kind of a good thing too, with your pitting there. This is another 9-second stop, a little over 9 seconds. At lap 190, he passes the 16. He's up to 24th. The 191 passes 99 up to 23rd. 194 here, middle of 3, the 43 and the 1. And he passed both of them. Come shooting right through there up to 21st. He's chasing 6 car who was on like a one-stop strategy at that point, but he was 0.2 faster than him, so he was chasing him down. Lap 215, he's the middle of 3 with the 6 and the 5 car. And he passed the 6, which was the leader at the time, get his lap back. And at lap 217, he's middle of 3 with the 24 and 34. Lap 219, he passes him and he gets to 18th. At lap 225, passes the 48, 17th. And the 6 wins stage 2, and Ryan's up to 17th.
Yeah, and that's definitely where that strategy paid off. I mean, it was a little scary, like you were saying, when he was going to get his lap back from the 6. That was a lot of people were racing around at that point. I think I maybe bespoke earlier when I said the 5 was running high then. I think this is actually the point when the 5 was running super high on the track when Ryan ends up splitting them. So it's a little bit of a hairy situation, but he gets through there and then he just starts picking people off all the way till the end of the stage. So this is what I was saying, start to see the light at the end of the tunnel on this run where, really we're kind of uneasy about how this weekend was going to go with their speed and where they qualified, but slowly but surely, I mean, the detriment here is no stage points on the day. That's kind of unfortunate. Just now, I mean, it's not too bad. I think they're at a point here where they're not going to have a chance to win the regular season championship, but where you finish still within that top 10. I mean, I think he needs to stay within the top 10. That's important. That's going to determine the bonus playoff points that you get going into the playoffs. So there is some there. But it did hurt a little bit to not get stage points in this race.
So they're discussing, Jonathan and Ryan discussing some changes here. And Ryan says it's pretty hot in the car too. So really, really hot there on Sunday. And
I don't know if you watched much on the broadcast, but they showed a couple of the guys had thermometers in the car. And at one point, Denny Hamlin's thermometer was at 135 degrees inside the car. So That's rough.
Yeah. We've got only 17 cars on the lead lap at this point, because we haven't had a natural caution. So, guys have been getting lapped, and two green flag pit cycles in a stage will do that, He's pitting in 17th, comes out 15th here, and this is another 9.75 second stop. I mean, really, really good here. The leader's the 6, taking the bottom, Ryan taking the bottom here. And they restart lap 239 here. And so lap 241, the 47 comes on the outside, and Ryan's at 16th at this point. 245, he's saying he's sideways. He's slideways. He's kind of, a little bit too much there. Looked up 246, the 14 passes, so he's in 17th at this point. And it's funny is the 5 and the 24 are a lap down, and they're kind of in Ryan's way here. They're in the mix. They're in front of him. He can't get to a guy, try to pass a guy. If he, if somebody's falling back toward him, he still has to go around these two guys sometimes to get to them. And at lap 260, he says it's just so bad he can't really run anywhere. Josh asked Jonathan, just to clarify, they're going to go 2 stops this segment, and he says, yeah. So they just kind of little radio communication on that lap 265 so that they're in tune. And
which it's worth asking because the 19 car, I think, does a 1 stop on this, and the 34 again, I think they do a 1 stop in this final stage. So it's worth asking, but not too many takers this time around when it came to that kind of really bold strategy.
Yeah, so they get to 270 here. They're discussing what kind of changes to make, anticipating the next green flag stop. And lap 284, Jonathan tells them there's 8 more laps till they probably going to do their pit stop. So the green flag stops are beginning. By lap 290, he's up to 3rd here, and then at lap 293, cars are pitting. He's pitting. So lap 300 here, they're P20 as the cars all haven't pitted yet. He passes the 20 and the 5 for positions, gets to 18th. At lap 305, 17 becomes the leader. So 17 kind of takes over and from here to the end. Let's see here. Oh, you know what? There was a point in time here where Austin spotter got with Josh's spotter and told him that it looked like the right front was smoking. And they didn't. Josh says he didn't see anything, so they thought maybe they had a little tie rub from hitting something or somebody, but there really wasn't anything. At lap 312, passes the 17 to get his lap back, and at lap 317 he passes the 48 to get to 16th. At lap 318 passes the 47 here to 15th. Definitely better on entry and exit here, he says. Lap 330 closing in on the 9 here. And his speeds are the same as the top 5 cars. If he was up there with them, he'd be racing with them. At lap 331 passes the 9 to 14th. At lap 335, we get green flag pitting again. And this one's they go a little bit longer than some people. And at lap 340, Ryan actually takes the lead as others are pitting and he hasn't. And, I'm sitting there asking for a caution. Would it be great to flip the field and have some goofy things happen and have a bunch of
caution, guys, rain, anything.
Well, have a bunch of guys trapped a lap down and have to do a wave around and all that fun stuff. But they do come in and pit. And once again, this the 19 takes the lead at that point, and they're but at lap 345 they pit and they cycle back out to 20th at this point, 1 lap down with the 17 leading. So this is once again, they ran longer, so now they're going to be quicker, and hopefully they can get back to some people here. But lap 354, he's in 19th. At lap 356, passes the 5 up to 18th. And Ryan asks where the leader is, and Josh tells him he's actually about 6 cars ahead of you. As he works toward that. And lap 370, there's only 14 cars in the lead lap here. Lap 370, he passes the 47 up to 17th. 371 passes the 48 up to 16th. 385 passes the 45 up to 15th. 388 passes the 54 up to 14th. And now he's the lucky dog. So now it's like, can something happen between now and the end of the race? And it's like, as before the leader passes somebody else and makes somebody else the lucky dog. And sure enough, 2 laps later, Mi Amigo helps us out.
Yeah. And I mean, Ryan honestly wasn't that far away from the 17 on getting his own lap back. So it would have probably been even more perfect if he got the lap back and then the caution came out with like 3 or 4 to go. I would have been okay with that too. But now the interesting thing has to happen here. I mean, there's going to be some pit stops and cars are going to wave around that are only 1 lap down or more. And one thing that was happening in the Discord chat and talking with you, we're assuming Ryan's going to be behind a bunch of lap cars, like on a normal caution would be, like the guys that are 1, 2, whatever lap down, because when you get that free pass position, you go tail end of the longest line. But with wave arounds, there's actually kind of like a different stipulation in the rule where if you wave around, it's like you're even further behind everybody. So Ryan actually ends up with, I think you were saying, you went back and looked at it, Suarez, who was the caution, didn't wave around. He probably had to pit to get tires on because he probably flat spotted. Ryan and Suarez kind of end up being kind of the last 2 cars there, with Ryan on the lead lap now, and then all the wave around cars go behind him. So he had a shot here. He had a shot here on this last restart to maybe make up a couple positions, but he's 14th at this point.
14th, and Jonathan tells him we're pumping the tires for a short run. And they initially discussed having to get behind all the anybody who's a lap down. And like you said, everybody took the wave around to get on back on the lead lap. So, which is great because now you're in front of the lead lap. You're in front of those guys who took the wave around. They're on old tires, so you don't have to worry about them. Like you said, Suarez may have been a lap down, but you have to get behind him for the choose because it's tail end of the behind those guys. So, but he ends up having to race with him a little bit because he's next to him. But 3 to go on the restart here. The 17 takes the bottom. Ryan takes the top, and Ryan ends up 14th on the lead lap and the 17 winning. He raced with the 9 a little bit in the close laps.
I think they were side by side at the finish line. He just didn't get there. I was like hoping just one more spot would have been great, but
yeah, a little catastrophe at the end would have been great. What's amazing is there was 1 natural caution. No cars actually left the race for a crash or any kind of damage. And can you imagine under the old rules how many cars would have been on the lead lap if they hadn't stopped for stage breaks?
Yeah,
5. There may be 5 cars on the lead lap. Maybe it would have been really, really old school. For the old school fans, it'd have been really old school Richmond, where almost the whole field gets lapped sooner or later because of green flag pitting. Just crazy. And like you said, the racing wasn't anything more than good strategies. And look, they gained 11 spots from the beginning to the end of the race. And it was basically because of the way the tire strategy worked out. Jonathan hitting when they did, doing what they did, helped Ryan get his car in better position to pass people. And they made some passes. So, and played pretty much mistake free for the most part on pit road too. So overall, you can't be totally dissatisfied with the day. It's not a huge points day, but as far as racing and being a race car driver and passing people and improving the car, there was a point in there where Josh actually got on there and told Jonathan that they might want to take note of some of these laps because a certain line he was running with the adjustments they made, they were really, really, really fast. what is it? What's the Twitter handle? The racing analytics.
I already have it pulled up. Auto Racing Analytics. If you can follow them on X, formerly known as Twitter, at AR_analytics. And I pulled this up because it was kind of a funny thing. The fact that, he posts this graphic after every race, but with this race specifically, it's a little bit skewed because of some of the guys that are in his graphic were a lap down or multiple laps down or something like that. But the graphic is basically showing where, the top 10 cars could have finished based on medium lap speed over the last 50 laps. So Ryan would have been the leader or the winner of the race or whatever. But I mean, there's so much more that goes into how a race plays out than just this graphic would show. But it is showing over the last 50 laps, he was pretty much the fastest car.
Here's why. When you look at that statistics, here's why. You take the fact that Ryan was one of the last cars to pit.
Yep.
In the green flag cycle, and then being the lucky dog, he ends up pitting again, and all the waiver rounds do not pit. So there's a bunch of cars that end up on the same tires they did the green flag cycle with, and were behind him on that to begin with. So he had the fresher tires over the last 50 laps than almost anybody else in the field. And there you go.
So I'm good with it. I mean, it's just funny, but so there's just so many things that went into like making this chart really not mean too much. But I was going to pump that and share it just because
it was cool to look at.
Good.
Yeah, it's cool to look at because there are a lot of people probably looking at it going, "Wait a minute, he finished 14th."
The guy immediately, the guy that posted immediately said pointed out hey, I just do this every week, but this was a little bit skewed because of the way the strategies and everything played out. So that's good follow though. Auto Racing Analytics on Twitter.
It's just like how NASCAR will tell you how there was so many passes.
There
was lots of green flag passes. Well, because there was nothing but green flag pit stops. So green flag passes all happened during green flag pit stops. So
you mentioned old school racing or being like old school Richmond, and this is kind of the closest to that we're going to get. And it almost felt like old Atlanta to me, the way the drivers talked about it after the race, because you had Keselowski, you had Logano, and all of these were guys that were really good at conserving their tires throughout the day and working that strategy. So I can see why they liked it. Ryan Preece, who is a short track guy, that like Josh Berry and Ty Majeski and a lot of those others really know how to conserve tires when they run these short track races and things like that. So they love it. They love the race kind of playing out on its own. They probably would have loved it if there weren't stage breaks and all that kind of thing. So they enjoy that. It's just kind of like old Atlanta. They love the worn out surface. They love the tire fall off. They love the slipping and sliding. But a lot of the fans weren't really huge fans of both of those things the last few years. So I could appreciate the strategy much more. On a lot of the short tracks, we've been calling for tires that fall off to create this comers and goers thing. I think we would rather see it more comers and goers based on guys running harder than other people and not necessarily based on tire strategy. I think there's more tire strategy involved in this than it was necessarily the fall off itself. But I don't know. It was okay. And compared to the way practice went, the way qualifying went, the way the first half of the race went, if you would have said, oh, they're going to come out with a 14th place finish, I would have been like, yeah, okay. And that's kind of how I feel about the day. Okay. Let's talk about the point standings. On the plus side, did gain 5 points to the leader. We were minus 135 points to Martin Truex Jr. last week. And I think we're in 8th position. Now Ryan Blaney sits in the 9th position in the NASCAR Cup Series overall point standings, 130 points back of Martin Truex Jr., who is the current leader now. The top 10 is as follows: Truex, Hamlin, Byron, Bell, Kyle Busch, Harvick, Chastain, Kyle Larson, Blaney, and teammate Joey Logano is now just 5 points back of the 12th car at minus 135 with 4 races to go in the NASCAR Cup Series regular season. So I mentioned the fact that the regular season championship really thought they were going to have a great shot at it after the run in the Coca-Cola 600 with the victory, following that up with a really good run, I think, at Gateway. But they've stumbled a little bit over this summer stretch and a couple of races here where they've got some decent finishes. They end up with a fairly decent finish here at Richmond. So points are going to matter. Like I said, the way that he finishes and the overall point standings going to the end of this regular season, the higher up you can finish in position, the more bonus playoff points that you'll get. Obviously, if you win the regular season championship, you automatically get 15 bonus points. And then from second on back, I think it goes down, I think from 10, like it just kind of goes down each position. So the higher up he can finish, the more bonus points he's going to get. He does have the 8 playoff points kind of in the bag right now from his 3-stage wins and the 5 playoff points that he got with his victory from the Cook 600. So sitting pretty well at this point. And if we're comparing this to last year, I will say they were much more consistent when it came to finishes and leading the points or being the top 5 in points all year long last year. One thing they didn't have last year, Steve, was that victory to have in their back pocket. So I think going into this run, even though they're falling down the standings a little bit, having that win means so much this season.
Yeah, you get looking at last year versus this year, you can't. They're totally two different things. They were in playoff mode, for the last 8 weeks of the regular season last year because they had to be with all those new winners. This year, you get the win. You're one of the winners, so they've experimented, I'm sure, a little bit. They've tried some different things that hopefully pay off in the last 10 weeks. That's always the key. These running tracks that are similar to Phoenix or things like that. They're going to try some different things at those tracks, take that data and hopefully be able to use it, when they get to Martinsville or when they get to, someplace like that. So yeah, I'm not too, I'd like to see a little momentum start now though, heading toward the playoffs, and the next couple of weeks are just crazy races coming up. So Michigan is a little more normal. But then you got your Indy Road Course, you got your Watkins Glen, and then you got Daytona.
Yeah, it's an interesting stretch run here to finish out the rest of this regular season. So that's where things kind of sit when it comes to the NASCAR Cup Series point standings and where Ryan Blaney stands. Let's take a look at our own standings when it comes to the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League, and let's recap how our teams fared at Richmond. So I'll take a look at my starting lineup. This is coming off of one of my first top 10 runs of the season last week. So I was hoping to myself carry some momentum into these next few weeks, and I did okay. I think I finished 20th overall in points earned at Richmond. My starting lineup was Kyle Busch, got me 39 points. Chase Elliott got me 31 points. Bubba Wallace got me 41 points. Denny Hamlin got me 49 points. William Byron got me just 20 points. So and here's my mistake. I left Brad Keselowski in the garage. I don't know. I think I was just dozing on and off in this race or something. I wasn't really paying attention to think about it. If I put Keselowski into my lineup, it would have actually potentially put me into the top 10. I could have had back-to-back top 10s if I would have dropped Brad into my lineup. So that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. My featured matchup, I picked Reddick over Austin Dillon. That was wrong. I picked Hamlin over Larson. That was right. I picked Preece over LaJoie. That was right. I picked Harvick over Bell, and that was right. So I went 3 for 4 in the featured matchup. So, I mean, points-wise, I 210 total points, which is not necessarily a bad day in this league, but it wasn't enough to get into the top 10. Top 10, the 10th position was 219 points earned. So I fell 9 points shy of the top 10. So, man, so close to back-to-back. What did your lineup look like last week?
I had Harvick, Truex, Keselowski, Logano, Busch, which, is decent. 9th best points, 3rd best, 8th best, 6th best. Bell ended up in the garage. And actually, I had him in the lineup. I believe I swapped him out at 1 point for Joey, actually. The matchups is where I messed up. I had Preece was the only one I won. I lost the other 3 matchups, so I left 30 points on the table there, which, you give me just 20 of those points and I'd be at would have been at 212. Would have been right around where you're at. So yeah, just sometimes those matchups, they're not as easy as you think.
And they could save you too. Like you said, you just get 1 or 2 of those right and you're fighting for a top 10 there. But unfortunately, you ended up tied for 42nd in points earned with 192 points. I ended up tied for 20th with 210 points earned. And the top 10 in points earned at Richmond are as follows. Fike, 21 with 219 points. Ninth was Team Penske with 220. Tied for 6th. We have a three-way tie here. That's great. 666. Penske Fan 24, the Buckeye Bullet, and Glitter Bugs. 221 points earned. And 5th, Eric D15, 222. And 4th, Blaney's Daisy, 223. And 2nd, US Calvin, 231. And 2nd, NASCAR Nut 12, 231. And a friend of the show, Joe Bro, 1221. 237 points earned. This is his second or third, I think, win of the season. So that comes at Richmond Raceway. So congratulations to Justin, to Joe Bro there. We'll see you at a race soon, I'm sure. Let's take a look at the overall standings in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. I am now in the 37th position overall with 3,942 points. Steve has slipped out of the top 10 the last several weeks. He's now in the 15th position. Mez 12 with 4,114 points. And here's the top 10 in points earned full season, all season long here in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. Fike 12 in the 10th position, 4,169. And 9th, it's No Hesitation, 4,186. And 8th, Blaring Idiots, 4,226. And 7th, Alyssa C, 4,227. And 6th, Go Larson, 4,228. 5th, Eric D15, 4,248. And 4th, Penske Fan 24, 4,249. Tied for second now, Blaney's Daisy and Christian Dana, 4,289. And in the first position overall in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League, with 4 races to go in the regular season, it's Factory of Sadness 6 with 4,371 points. And Steve, that brings us to this week's race, where there's no sleep till
Brooklyn.
That would be Brooklyn, Michigan, the home of Michigan International Speedway.
The reference is a Beastie Boys song, for those who don't know.
If you want to catch the racing action this weekend, as far as the NASCAR Cup Series goes, it kicks off on Saturday. I think Friday does have some practice and qualifying stuff for some of the lower series, but Saturday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the NASCAR Cup Series hits the track for practice and qualifying at Michigan on the USA Network, followed at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time with the NASCAR Xfinity Series Cabo Wabo 250 on NBC. So I think that's 2 weeks in a row where the Xfinity Series actually gets to be on the big network. So that's kind of cool. On
Cabo
Sunday,
Wabo.
Cabo Wabo too. Tequila.
That's isn't that Sammy Hagar's tequila?
I don't know. Maybe either way, any tequila is okay. Throw in a margarita, I'm good.
Tequila. Oh, tequila. Of all the things to bring up today, tequila. Sorry, I know you are, but what am I?
Oh. Anyway, Sunday, August 6th, this weekend, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the NASCAR Cup Series Firekeepers Casino 400, Michigan International Speedway. That race you can catch on the USA Network. Let's take a look at Ryan Blaney's stats when it comes to Michigan, and it's one of his better tracks. He has 14 starts there, an average start of 10.4, an average finish of 14.5. He's led a total of 58 laps, which isn't a ton, but he does have 7 top 10s and 5 top 5s, including a victory that came in the single race there, the lone race there in 2021, which if you remember, it's kind of where the 12 team caught fire. They won at Michigan, and then they followed the next week and finished off the regular season winning at Daytona. So back-to-back wins going into the 2021 playoffs. But yeah, you can talk a little bit about it, but after that Michigan race, you were able to sit down with Ryan Spotter, Josh Williams, and maybe I'll share that link, but it was really interesting because the last several laps of that race was kind of a clinic between how Ryan races and Josh spots, and the way they were able to, kind of block the advances from behind, block the runs, dirty up the air, and end up going to victory lane there in 2021. Yeah,
the car from 2 years ago at those types of tracks had that little bit of kind of racing where you did have to block, and
it's like the bubble and beach ball and that kind of thing.
Yeah, all that exactly terminology. And the last 8 laps were spectacular. Mind you, I listened to the the radio, but to have Josh come on and actually explain it, I put a couple links up in the Discord chat. If anybody want to go back and listen to that, even the first 15 minutes of the podcast itself, where he talks about all that, just shows you how good Ryan was and how good Josh was helping him that day. So nothing that says that can't happen again this weekend.
Yeah. So in those last two races there at Michigan, Ryan finished first in 2021, and last year finished in fifth. So coming off of a couple of top fives, 2020 did finish fourth. So at least one race in the new car, and he still ran up front. So that's definitely something that's good to see. I know it's kind of hard to take some of these older statistics and apply them to next gen era, but he did pretty decent though in the last race there.
Can you do me a favor? I don't know how quick you can pull it up. Can you pull up the results from California this year? Just real quick. I don't know how long it would take you to do that, but my thinking on this is, mind you, the noses of the cars have changed from last year to this year, but the only comparable track they run to Michigan was California. And I'm kind of curious to see what the new noses kind of did early in the year there with like the Toyotas and the Fords.
I don't remember the exact issue that they had here, and he may have got damage or something in a crash, but he did actually finish 26, 4 laps down, but he did lead 16 laps of that race. So he kind of dominated early, and I don't know, maybe they had a pit road. I think something bad happened.
That happened, yeah.
For sure. Kyle Busch went on to win the race. So if you look at like the top 10, I know we usually kind of transition into talking about what you might pick for your fantasy lineup, but the top 10 in that race at California earlier this year was Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, Daniel Suarez, Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, Alex Bowman, Austin Dillon, and Joey Logano. So Joey did end up with a pretty decent finish. Ryan didn't do so well, but yeah.
Ryan started 9th, finished second in stage 1, and then wasn't there in stage 2 in the top 10. So something happened between stage 1 and stage 2 there, I think. So yeah, I mean, that's why I was thinking about that, because what did the new noses of the Fords do? Harvick actually ended up being the big guy that day. So I think it'd be another one. Harvick was so good last year at Michigan. Bubba Wallace is a guy to look at too. And Ryan, I think Ryan will be one of those guys up in the top 5 again. So this should be a good, exciting weekend, especially for a couple guys who do a podcast every week. There'll be a Team Blaney takeover at Michigan Speedway this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be hopefully it's a good show. I think the racing should be pretty decent. The racing that's been at the intermediates, 1.5 miles. I know Michigan's 2 mile or so track. So big track, but the next gen cars have performed really well on them so far. Now we're getting further and further down the line as teams have been able to develop the car and learn a little bit more about what adjustments they can do, even though I still think, air pressure and wedge are still kind of the main things they can do. Everything else they kind of have to have set up at the shop when it comes to shocks and springs or whatever even is available now to them. So hopefully the simulation is working out pretty decently, and hopefully they've learned something since that race. Like you said, probably the closest thing they can kind of look at that was good bringing that up is Fontana. So they did have a strong car at one point during that race. I was even trying to score back on our own podcast notes to see what happened there, but I feel like something like kind of catastrophic happened and kind of slowed their finish there. So I mentioned leaping back to fantasy a little bit, and just 4 races left. And so this is that point when I even myself kind of go back and look, and I've been conserving a lot of starts all year long for some people that I've probably wasted at this point. I still do have some Ryan starts available. Is there anybody that is left that is available to you that you're going to be targeting for this week's race at Michigan?
Yeah. Any Toyota that I can get my hands on. But I do like Brad and Busher now, and definitely like Kevin. The Stewart-Haas cars as a whole, it can be hit and miss with those guys, but Kevin consistently is up there, and I can see him having another strong day like he did last year there. Bubba actually could have won the race last year, just had a little bit of a slip up on a restart, I believe. So he's definitely looking to kind of duplicate the day and finish it off. And like I said, Ryan gets himself in the right position, and he can pull it off too, and that'd be great because it's always good to see him win live and in person.
I think this is absolutely a Toyota 2311 Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick. I think this is a place where Reddick can even bounce back. The problem that those two teams have had, and not that the 12 team has been free from this year is execution. And both of them had that, Bubba and now totally different types of tracks. But this past week at Richmond, Reddick led a lot of the race. Bubba led a decent chunk of the race. Bubba has a bad pit stop. Reddick misses the commitment cone coming into pit stop, and both of their days are pretty much ruined by that. So if they can, and we see this even with the 12, if they can come to the track, unload with speed, and execute, and to win a race in the Cup Series, you almost have to be perfect. It is really hard. I mean, we have seen some guys this year a couple of times, and Ryan's done this in his career as well, come back from a, seems like you can come back from like a spin and win type situation where a caution comes out. But having a mistake on pit road or speeding or missing a commitment line or just anything like that is just going to kill your day. So you have to execute, especially when it comes to things like pit stops and everything that involves that. So going to be leaning a lot on those crews, leaning a lot on the simulation, and coming to the track with a setup that's going to give you some speed. And man, especially for the 12 team, qualifying used to not have to worry about it. Used to almost lock into the top 10 every time, but there's been more races than I'd like this season where they've kind of slipped out of the top 10 starting position wise, and you can't start behind and expect to get stage points and solidify your place in the playoff standing. So even though they're locked in this year, as we talked about. If you want to tune in again this weekend, the NASCAR Cup Series practice and qualifying kicks off at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday on the USA Network. And it's followed up on Sunday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time for the Firekeepers Casino 400 at Michigan International Speedway on the USA Network. One other thing to mention as far as Blaney news goes is that Dave Blaney and Dale Blaney were both active this past weekend with the World of Outlaws at Weedsport Speedway. Both of them made the World of Outlaws feature, which is kind of a pretty big deal. A lot of competition in that series. Dale drove from 20th to 9th in the feature, and Dave, the Buckeye Bullet, drove from 12th to 3rd. So got a podium finish. So if you follow the World of Outlaws on X or Facebook or any other social medias, there's some great photos of Dave, pretty proud of his finish, some photos of Dave on the podium with the other two guys. So from what I understand, I think they're going to be racing a couple other races this week in the New York area. So look for the results of that and follow along on Dirt Vision, Flow Racing, and then on social media channels, and we'll try to retweet and give people up to date. But tell you what, the Blaney brothers have been having a really good season, both of them picking up multiple victories at Sharon Speedway, and it's really good to see them both, who haven't been full-time guys regularly the last few years, to go to like a World of Outlaws race and both finish in the top 10 against some of the best sprint car drivers in the country. So always cool to see that happen when the Blaneys hit the dirt race tracks. Well, Steve, that pretty much wraps up this week's episode. I guess I'll see you in Michigan.
Yeah.
New track for me.
Let's get that together. Like I said, we're coming at you, Michigan. Look out, Jeff and Bob. Maybe hopefully we get there early enough. We'll make it to the X up,
the tweet up. Oh gosh, yeah.
The thread up. All that.
Thread up.
The thread up.
I forgot about threads, man. I mean, I'll mention it in our closing here, but I haven't done anything on threads since that first week when it was exciting. So, but yeah, I'll bring some stickers along too. So if people go to the tweet up, X up, thread up, we'll try to get there. If not, if you see us around the track, we can hook you up.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe we'll put together an impromptu something somewhere where, we'll meet some people. I know that our TikTok has gained some followers in the last week. And I'd like to thank actually somebody personally. She goes by Mads, Mads, but there's a star at the beginning and a star at the end, and it's Maddie. And she's a huge Blaney fan that actually has 14,000 followers, on the TikTok. And she actually did a little shout out video for us to try to gain some more people toward us. The goal is still to get to 1,000. If we could have got to 1,000 this weekend, we would have done like a live. And actually, I'm still thinking maybe we should do an Instagram live with the Team Blaney Instagram. Maybe that would be the way to go.
I would love to do it. It all depends on infrastructure.
Well, we could always use my phone as a hotspot.
Yeah.
When I think about it. So we can figure something out. Not during the race, but before the race. Maybe we'll do a Facebook Live even for entertainment value. Our friends Jerry and Kirsten are going with us too. So we've got a whole pack of Blaney Bunch members, and Team Blaney will be well represented at the track. So like I said, if you guys follow TikTok or have done any TikTok, check out TikTok. I put not only like a video a week right now. I try to generate some more content, but it's also a nice way to like look at some racing stuff. And I'm trying to follow more stuff too. We follow guys like JanMan33, who actually is one of the guys that drives one of the jet dryers for the NASCAR series. If you want to follow him, it's kind of cool. He'll post something from the track every week when they let him. He's got to be careful. Can't be driving that thing and putting videos out. But there was some interesting videos like the Charlotte weekend. Just the water off the truck that they, when they were getting all the water off the track. So, but yeah, give us a follow. Let's get this thing to 1,000 so we can actually do a TikTok live at some point. We could do a TikTok live one night while we're recording an episode. That'd be great.
Absolutely. So yeah, thanks to Maddie there. Her videos come across my feed from time to time, and she's definitely one of those ones that is depends on how she is feeling after a race is probably how you're feeling after a race. So either be positive or sad or funny but yeah, she's definitely a big time Blaney fan. It's cool to see. And I'm really thankful for her to kind of go out there and share our TikTok, which is new and fledgling, and it's Steve's baby, and he's trying to have some fun on there. And so if you have any ideas, send them to Steve, and we'll work on that.
Yeah, I thought last week's The Office theme one was pretty good. I thought, I really did, because they were in Pocono Mountains. It's near Scranton. I thought a perfect little mashup. Somehow figured out how to do some art things and clip people and put them in the office. And Josh actually looked good behind the desk.
Takes command of the room back there. So
that's right. Mm-hmm.
So thank you, everyone, once again for tuning into this episode of the Team Blaney podcast. If you'd like to learn more about myself or co-host Steve, just go ahead and listen to our very first episode that explores our Blaney racing fandom. You can interact with us on Facebook and X, formerly known as Twitter, at Team Blaney, and on Instagram, Threads, and the aforementioned TikTok at team.blaney. And finally, we'd like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation, established in 2018. This organization supports causes like the Alzheimer's Association and UPMC Sports Medicine through fundraisers, events, and membership in the Blaney Bunch Fan Club. To learn more, visit RyanBlaneyFamilyFoundation.org on all of their active social media channels. So for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Brussels. Check out the TikTok.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.